Hi guys. Kennedy's speech says it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly-knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Now, the common denominator of all languages are numbers. The Bible, being the devil's playground, is a trap for the Freemason Zionists found in every church, where Zionist preachers feed the sheep poisoned fodder like factories feed lambs for the slaughter. Each has a straw man account, shortening a life by contaminated air, water, food, vaccinations, and ongoing wars. All of it reaps trillions of dollars daily. Greg Braden spent 12 years of research leading to the writing of the God Code. The book is based on the fact that the basic elements of DNA, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon, translate directly to key letters of both the Hebrew and Arabic alphabets, and that in both alphabets they spell the name of God. According to Braden, what this means is that the letters of God's ancient name are encoded as the genetic formation in every cell of every life. The message that is revealed when the chemistry of our cells is translated into the letters of ancient Hebrew is God eternal within the body. This message is the same regardless of our race, colour, religion, or anything else. The author states the odds that this relationship has occurred by chance are approximately 1 in 200,000. Quoting from Isaiah 11:9, "They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea." In the early 90s, Yahweh was able to get onto the internet. He'd not made any uploads, but the first thing he read was in a chat room, and the post said, quoting, "I hear Jesus is back, living in Canada, waiting for the time he will take over the world." The Afghan war Harry so proudly serves in the Royal Air Force has cost 17 Australian lives last August, just weeks ago. We, the two of us, stood in respect for these youngsters and grieving families. The owners of the deceased soldiers' strawman accounts jump for joy. They stand to reap an average of $150 million per dead soldier. That would be $2.5 billion US for their strawman birth certificate. Harry would be worth 100 billion dead, as was his mother. Yahweh's account would be worth trillions. No luck for the assassins yet in their many attempts by the Mossad, but Harry being murdered by a terrorist would start World War III, and that'd be big bucks for the Zionists. But the prize there is actually the total annihilation of all life on the planet, leaving it to drift lifeless in space. This evil spirit has entered the minds of the world's leaders to do its will, certainly not Yahweh's. What about you, Harry? The reason why the spirit of evil is planning to kill everything with a nuclear plutonium fallout worldwide is because it could only return to the earth as a spirit, explained later. In the God code, every DNA double helix in all life, the 4 elements, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, God, and man with the extra carbon being the vessel, the flesh body. These spell out Yahweh, the tetragram, YHWH. Now, to understand why, we have to go back to the pre-flood, where the spirit of all evil, the fallen angel that wanted to be God, begs Yahweh not to be destroyed in the flood, quoting, "You created me." And having compassion, Yahweh forgives Lucifer, allowing it to come back to the earth, but no longer as a giant to mate with the descendants of Cain, but as a spirit. The spirit of evil represented as the raven. In the Tower of London to this day, the ravens remain. In past times, they scavenged the eyes of beheaded victims. The heads were placed on poles over Traitor's Gate. More later. Now, many more thousands than the reported 3,000 who died in the Twin Towers, the verses Isaiah 9:11 and 11:9 you should read. Under US law, if more than 3,000 die in one location, the property can only be used as a memorial, not as a commercial building. There is a huge rumour already happening in Manhattan that the Christ is back. The souls of the murdered victims cry out to be avenged and for America to wake up. Countless relatives are dreaming, seeing their loved ones in dreams, or ghosts telling them that the US government brought down the towers on a pretense to lure the masses into an everlasting war on terror. On November the 14th, 2012, Charles the Impaler will be 64. An eclipse of the sun will occur off the east coast of Australia along the 25-degree latitude. That eclipse will be 942 miles from Yahweh's crib. Solomon is reported to have died at the age of 64. It is 942 miles from where Yahweh was constrained until he was 942 days old. Why? The name Jesus is found within 942 verses. The Old Testament is a total construct by Pharisee priests out of Babylon, they the descendants of Freemasonry. And today we are on a collision path between truth and lie. Rumours on the internet suggest God is back and has waited until the world has built the necessary infrastructure to then take it over. This is true, but time is based on the movement of the solar system, as it is pulled by the sun to cross the equator of the Milky Way galaxy, which we crossed 370 days earlier than predicted by the Mayan 21st of December 2012 calendar. One may ask why the Omnipotent has allowed such evil. He hasn't. You have. The cost of free will. The Christian world is the cause, sending troops off to war because the pulpits demand it. The word of God via Paul says that you must obey the government. The Bible and the Quran are Freemason weapons of mass deception. Ask yourself the question, if the earth was destroyed in a nuclear holocaust, would St. Peter on the gate allow you into heaven with a Bible or Quran under your arm? Ask anyone, Christian or Muslim, if while in the heavenly end of the tunnel of light, were there any Bibles or Qurans? Yahweh has read a few pages of the Quran, as I have. It's a Roman, Babylonian, Jewish invention. Like the Bible, it has inserted what the church wanted as a control mechanism, which is called the Hegelian dialectic, where one religion can be pitted against the other, resulting domination by the secret occult behind them. Endless suppression, wars and death. Iran is the first Islamic nation to respect the first command of Muhammad. It is in the St. Catherine's Monastery on Mount Sinai. Few Muslims read it or obey it. Only one letter of the command of Muhammad exists of any biblical prophet, and yet how many Muslim children recite that? 0. Why? Because the Quran, which has 6,666 verses, is recited by the children in a rave of hapless dribble. Yahweh will not be taking any orders from any religious teacher, priest, cleric or caliph. Don't even bother bring up the subject in his presence. He will free the meek from religion by the letter of Muhammad and John F. Kennedy. President Kennedy was one of the finest men in US history. William Cooper, a close second. JFK and Cooper, like Hitler, the finest Jesus-loving man in German history. Both had a very extensive grasp of the evils behind world powers. The wonderful speech was the reason he was assassinated. The hours are ticking down to complete employment for all who want to work. Employed in the levelling of all lodges, churches and synagogues.
Especially synagogues.
Yahweh has predicted that the spirit of the masses of North America, inherited from ancestors who fought the War of Independence and then the American Civil War, would rise from sleep, rebel and free the world. He recommends that you search the YouTube for Regions of Saturn. It's a brilliant work exposing the deception of the English Freemasons once they realize Christ is back. Once a person overcomes the stupidity of self to consider what proof God in the flesh would have with him, what would his credentials be? How about demonstrate a motor that runs on magnets, or cure AIDS, cancer, malaria, VD, diabetes too, so on? Would that be good enough? Or walk you through the Great Pyramid that was built centuries before the Egyptians discovered the wheel? Or that he has to be genetically the most royal man alive, which if true one would expect as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, must be a factor. The oldest indicators are the Great Pyramid and the Hindu religion. Hinduism is the oldest religion. The Vedas predicted the birth, death, resurrection by name of Jesus, who was Jehovah or Yahweh, God, over 4,000 years ago, and he would be made known as a man in 2012. When the pyramid was built, the Hindu religion was in its pure form, truth. All around the world, modern archaeology has discovered the remains of huge men and women, all emerging in the last decade, some 15 feet tall. The ancient historian mentioned the Hyksos shepherd kings invaded Egypt and built the pyramids and all huge structures. In Egypt is a statue made of granite that has fallen over. It weighs over 1,000 tons. The granite is exceedingly tough. In Turkey is a huge stone still in the quarry, also over 1,000 tons. Similar stones have been found in South America. The point being, no modern crane could lift more than 200 tons. Modern machinery requires engines to drive the gears, and cables have to be manufactured, and yet cannot achieve what these people achieved. All local natives to these areas speak of huge white men, blonde hair, blue eyes, from China to the Andes to Egypt and Europe. Hundreds of pyramids in China have been covered over with soil to stop the white men builders becoming known to the West. Today, satellites with ground-penetrating radar have uncovered the numbers. History has been rewritten by England, promoting the notion the royal families of Europe are descended from Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They, brother and sister, son and daughter of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Jesus and Mary had 3 children, the first in 33 AD. The dates being invented before modern computers, and world researchers at home on the internet have overtaken the secure secrets of Jewry and Freemasonry, with tentacles controlling all media. Bloodline of the Holy Grail concocted. And there you have Jesus the Christ and St. Mary Magdalene, who had 3 children, supposedly. The first, Tamar, 33 AD, the second, Jesus the Justus, 37 AD, and the third Josephus, 44 AD. Now, let's see how inaccurate this fable actually is. Cleopatra the 7th, Philopator late 69 BC to August the 12th, 30 BC, known to history as Cleopatra, was the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt. So we have 69 BC to 30 BC, dying and aged 39. Gaius Julius Caesar, July 100 BC, assassinated 15th of March 44 BC. We have Cleopatra, 69 BC to 30 BC, dying age 39. Julius Caesar, 31 when she was born. He died at 54 in 44 BC. She died at 39 in 30 BC. Gives a narrow window. The question is, if Jesus and Mary were sister and brother, when were they born? Sometime before 32 BC? Gaius Julius, assassinated 15th of March 44 BC. If he was the father of Jesus and Mary and they were twins, both have to be born at the latest 46 BC. Therefore, Jesus, by the time of the cross in 33 AD, was 79 years of age. Mary, 77. At best gave birth to twins at, 75 years of age? Bullshit! Who knows when these royal historians rewrote history and for what purpose? One purpose only. The occult has all of history's truth suppressed in the hope that when I show up, when Yahweh shows up, the mountain of public opinion will be more powerful than the Creator, simply because man made in God's image has weakened God by pouring himself into his offspring. That is what it's all about, and brings to mind Isaiah. Isaiah 57:4, quoting, "Against whom do ye sport yourselves? Against whom make ye a wide mouth and draw out the tongue? Are ye not children of transgression, a seed of falsehood?"
It managed to make Mary go.
The distance to the moon was 57.4 Earth radii on December 12th, Eastern Australia time. On the 11th, at 11:11 a.m., the solar system crossed the equatorial line of the Milky Way galaxy equator. Now, how Jesus is to return is a misnomer. It never was Jesus coming back at all. It is the Comforter. Jesus is coming in the clouds, same way as he went. More deception. As Jesus is God, the name in Hebrew is Joshua, or more specifically, Joshua meaning Yah saves. Therefore, when I said, unless I go, Yah cannot send, the Comforter is misunderstood by mistranslation of Arabic into Greek, then English. Yah, Hindi, Yahweh or Jehovah, comes as the baby Jesus, matures, teaches, then killed on April 3rd, 33 AD. There was no Gregorian calendar at that time, so it's only when the calendar is invented, time is revealed for modern man based on the 365.2424 day year. Hebrew time, 360 days. As the man Jesus, Yahweh's existence on the earth was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. The name Jesus became known from June the 17th, 2 BC, ending on April the 3rd, 33 AD, the crucifixion. Now, Yah did not shrivel up and die after he was born and named Joshua, translated into Jesus. So, were there two deities? No. He was what we all are, flesh and soul. Yah, the soul, walked the earth in the body of the most royal person. Scripture, some correct, some mistranslated wrongly, often a verse in Matthew contradicted in Mark, Luke or John. The point being, they were written 200 years later. The Babylonian Solomon priests infiltrated everywhere. Their main target was the written account of what Jesus said, or Yah said as Jesus. Then a rewrite to mislead the masses from what we can not listen to from the pulpit. Once the truth is sown, how he was born, then he must return the same way as the most royal man, hence King of Kings. Not a spirit pouring into the mentality, not a spirit pouring into the mentally ill, channeling Jesus. It's talking about the Christian world who are channeling Jesus. They are mentally ill.
I wanted to look on the internet this morning to see what I said last fucking week. All these channelers. Dear me.
Oh, God's thought. Our side is God's thought for the day. We've got two so far. Yesterday's was, if their lips are moving, then it's bullshit. And the first one was, unless you're talking to him, nobody is hearing God. Now, to sort it all out, scholars do not consider the Vedas, which predicted God would come as a man and die on a cross, then be reborn in the end time when God, Yahweh, Jehovah, would be made known in 2012, predicting a date that is found within the Gregorian calendar. This is where the name Jehovah originated. As Jesus, Yahweh was born and conceived as all art was a natural conception. In the Aramaic Essene account, which is the source of the Gospels, naturally edited and invented to hide the reason why he was conceived within the womb of Mary by his natural father Joseph. God the Father, the soul of the baby, was born of the most royal man, Joseph ben Jacob, and the most royal woman of the Irish line, a natural conception. The free will of man, heavily influenced by the Pharisee of Babylon, and before Babylon the priests of Solomon, which moved to Babylon, as this warring 10 tribes of Israel had fallen to idolatry under Solomon. The tribes finally were vanquished by the king of Assyria. Nineveh is where the Jonas story kicks in. No sign will be given except for Jonas. This points to the scattering of the 10 tribes to Europe, mostly by trading ships from Cornwall delivering tin and copper to the Middle East. What this tells us is Europe was sparsely populated. Hundreds of ships, empty on the way back, offered transportation, making a fortune carrying passengers to Europe, a wilderness at that time. The unpopulated areas of Europe became the 10 nations that will hate the whore, Rome, which eventually adopted Christianity, dominating the new nations. Logically, the uninhabited areas indicate the growing population, confirming creation was only a few millenniums prior. This was the job of the angels, to make scriptures vary one with the other. In them, number codes, much too complicated for men to work out, especially Freemasons who used the Bible, demanding it is the word of God when it is the imagination of man. Jesus was never coming back at all. It is the Comforter who teaches you all things. What was the point of recording what he said 200 years later? Think about it. You're having a conversation with your wife today and it's recorded 200 years away? Hello? The reality is, with the Bible or not, what the world thinks or not, this is Yahweh. Yah. What the Gospels were for was to teach man how to love each other and love God as he loves us, and vice versa. So he shows up, and the cost is what the Freemasons, via their offspring, flooding into Babylon in 722 BC, when the king of Nineveh squashed the minor evil Israel. The 10 northern tribes of Israel were not the loving people who obeyed God. They invented God, Jew Baal on, the Joseph imagined story, the Egyptian connection to own the city of the devil they wrote as non-existing history. The Moses story never happened. The Solomon story, who married Pharaoh's daughter, the temple built by Solomon, and the citadel for his Egyptian wife in Jerusalem. What is missing from the story? No archaeological remnant of her citadel in Jerusalem. Yet such a monumental structure, even by the Khazar Jews who claim to be true Jews, utter rubbish. They do not ever mention the Egyptian wife of Solomon. The Egyptian records by the time of Solomon were very well documented. No Solomon mentioned or his Egyptian wife, therefore an invented history. Then we have the rubbish of Moses showing up with Elijah, and Yahweh as Jesus is supposed to have transfigured. The men asking him if they should make tents for these apparitions. What was the point? Jesus speaking to Moses verifies Moses' exodus from Egypt. Therefore Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers. And you have the religious trap slamming shut as it is the Word of God. This gives the impression Moses was real. The Exodus real, the Ten Commandments, the Ark of the Covenant in the Ark. Then the Ethiopian nonsense. They have the Ark in a compound surrounded by a fence and a building with a poor fool guarding a box full of bullshit until he dies. The Ten Commandments are bullshit. As Jesus, he said there were but two. Love God and love each other. The pretend Jews invent a series of very complicated laws. Add to that the Ten Commandments for the non-human beings, the Gentiles, when in fact they are the Gentiles and the white race is the Semite. In typical Talmud subterfuge, they have become the Semite and the Western nations the Gentile. Rome, a non-Israelite nation, adopts the false Christianity, and the lost sheep I told the apostles to go to remain lost. And then we have the Pope, who is Christ, or God in the flesh, small g. In Rome, that was never anything more than a growing powerhouse via terror tactics. Why would Yahweh say re-Israel, the lost sheep? Reincarnation. Matthew 15:24, quoting, "But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel." It's all about reincarnation now, in the time of the end. If I do not go to the Father, Yah cannot send the Comforter. The problem is for mankind, the relentless confusion, thinking the self-appointed Mongolian Khazar Jews are the royal tribe. The Bible Belt of the United States sends $12 billion a year to mass murderers that by treachery pushed out the Palestinians, then declared they, not you, are Israel. It's all utter bullshit.
Didn't we have a little announcement today from Iran?
Oh, yes. Yes, Joel, yes, he came out and announced that Iran has announced to Israel that you better leave Israel. It will soon become your graveyard if you do not.
I actually told them to do that, so they're doing it.
Warning. Warning to flee Israel.
Give them a warning.
Get out of
All the good
Israel.
Jews, leave.
All right. There is no Trinity. Simply three time frames. The confused masses are told from the Zionist pulpit. Only the Spirit of Jesus will pour out on the masses and save the day. To sort this lunacy out, we must look again to the original prophecy of the Hindi Vedas. The flood is about to occur. The giants, being fallen angels who mated with women, created the Cain demonic races. Satan begs Yahweh Jehovah to spare it, saying, "You created all angels." In an act of mercy, the request is granted, but cannot return as a flesh being. The giants who had mated with human women descended from Cain, it can only return as a spirit. The flood occurs. As the water subsides, a raven is sent out to find land. It returns. Noah sends it out again, and this time it does not return.
The reason the raven was sent out, it flies as high as 15 to 20,000 feet and has telescopic vision like an eagle. So if it's up 15, 16, 17,000 feet and doesn't see land, it comes back when it gets tired. Second time out, it doesn't come back. Then the dove is sent out and it comes back. Because it can fly long distances. It comes back with an olive branch, which is, by the way, the coat of arms of the Marshall family.
Okay, so then Noah sends the dove, it returns with an olive branch.
I've heard this before somewhere.
The Marshall Royal coat of arms. The raven can fly to 15,000 feet, has telescopic vision. Okay, so the dove is, okay. The first land sighted was Colombo, today named Sri Lanka, off the coast of India. Okay, repeating. And here it is, Sri Lanka. Beautiful island.
I've been there, of course.
Of course.
I'll bring attention here to the huge slabs and stones. These are people standing here, right? So this is the height of a person. There's the steps. So the person would go up about here. You have to get these bloody things up there. These the good angels have done all this. There's another one. Look at this.
Mm.
On top of a mountain. On top of, how do you get up there?
Yeah. Amazing. Now, Sri Lanka is one of the most ancient countries in the world, and this is not only about the monuments or the legendary conquerors. The thing is that some people believe that this small paradise is actually connected with the Bible paradise. Somewhere in these parts, according to the legend, Adam and Eve descended to earth. Where else would Noah first sight land? But swept on to Ararat, and next slide is Adam's Peak. Wow.
I went out to Ayers Rock a few years ago. Climbed it, got about halfway up and I was totally buggered. This thing is thousands of feet up.
Hey honey, that's a good place for our home, on the mountain away from it all.
Okay.
Now, Sri Lanka has a variety of animals spread around the world. Here there are predators, panthers, leopards, wildcats, lynxes, jackals, bears and monkeys. In large rivers are crocodiles having up to 8 metres of length. That's the crocodile. The variety of the world of birds is just astonishing. Pink flamingos, white storks, colourful parrots.
You ask anyone where the flamingos come from, South Africa. Where the crocodiles come from, Africa. Where the leopards come from. Where the panthers come from, South America. Leopards, Africa. Jackals, Africa. Bears, North America. Monkeys, Africa. And South America.
Mm. Oh, look at that. Beautiful leopard. What's the colour of the rock?
Fantastic.
Many ancient authors even point out the location of the Garden of Eden correlated with Taprobana or Ceylon until 1972, called Sri Lanka today. The Hindi people of India tell that this is where Satan of the Ark landed, and the island was never to be populated by human beings, as the spirit of Satan would infest them, being a spirit of evil, off the Ark and from there spread worldwide. And it did. The Jews added that to Christianity, and now the Hindu truth is prey to the demonic Buddha. Totally demonic.
You did sit under the tree, though.
Jehovah Witnesses preach from a hall that has one window, the effigy of the Ark. They claim they are Christ collectively, also the 144,000, and as they are Christ, the return of Jesus as a man is not preached. They have one thing right: paradise will be on the earth. Perhaps their stupidity is caused by having aluminium fly screen doors slammed in their faces. Alzheimer's is caused by aluminium. This is why all drinks are in aluminium cans. Yes, acid drinks leach the soft molecules into the fluid, and then you.
When I was in Colombo or Sri Lanka, Colombo at the time, I went and had a look at Buddha's temple, and this little fella comes out. He says, you know, Buddha was 500 BC. I said, so fucking what? Idiot.
Now, what would a sane mind make of all this truth intermingled with religious gibberish? probably become an atheist. So in fact, it is more likely an atheist, sickened by the wars and bullshit of the Bible and Quran. The only possible solution to this insanity is Yahweh's truth that will set you all free. Then we end up with a bunch of Satanists who cause wars continually and then claim the royal family of murderers to be descended from Jesus. There it is again. Now, ask yourself, how would God do it? Would he not have a few aces up his sleeve? Well, thus far, all have rejected Yahweh.
You notice I'm sitting actually behind you this
Yes,
time? I can take a punch here.
Well, I haven't moved today.
Good. Sleeping till work.
All right, so thus far all have rejected Yahweh, who has demonstrated thousands of miracles. Now, would you remotely consider it could be true that a man would show up and reveal to the world he is Jesus reincarnate? Very few would say it is true. Then look in the mirror at the image staring back at you. Demonic? Or one of the 144,000 that the Revelation predicts. Now, who exactly are the 144,000? They are the first who wake up to the delusion and the deception. They are the first fruits, if you like, and they break out of the matrix, and then they begin telling the rest of the world that the Christ has come. He is already here. There would be no reason to need the 144,000 to do that if he were fronting up on a big white horsey in the club.
Man, I like horses. I've had a couple.
Where all the world could see him at the same time, right?
If you look at the Middle East and the Queen running around on a white horse, it means power. That's all it means. Now, if you go into space, it means Libra. And this is October. And the white horse comes through that in the month of October, because what happens is there's two wings formed by linking together the what it is the magnitude. There's 3 stars that are 6.3, and you link those all together and it forms a wing. And then there's 3 at 6.4, that forms another one. So this is the Pickett's story jumping through the window of Pickett's in October.
Which is the month your mother was born. In 1912. All right, moving right along. Any wonder the dim-witted would swallow it and the intelligent become atheist? So if man is so advanced, why is it predicted the Comforter, who is God and is Jesus in the end of time, to return with a new name and he will teach you all things? What would be the point if man has it all figured out? Now enough of the bullshit and back to Yahweh's miracles. Looking again at the Great Pyramid, 50th layer of masonry, take a tape and measure to the far wall of the King's Chamber, 537 inches away. As you walk through the passage into the King's Chamber, the first thing you would pass through is the antechamber, it being 116.26 pyramid inches long, 116.26. Now, stopping at the far wall, then measure to the centre of the coffer, then up to the ceiling. You add the 3 and then multiply by a lunation, which is 29.53052 days. And the result is 31101, which is Yahweh's date of rebirth on Julian Day 24311101. And that in the Gregorian calendar is January the 11th, 1944. And there's a little diagram of what I just read out to you.
So there's your numbers. So you got 537, this is the Grand Gallery, you go through the antechamber 116.26. And those who are familiar with what I've been telling you so far, this is all to do with the genetics of my family. Ages. I married when I was 1162.6. Michelle, who was Mary Magdalene, absolutely, although she's too stupid to understand it, is 1162.6 days younger than I. Her youngest daughter and my eldest daughter is 11626 in years, that is 11.626, etc., etc., etc. And if you add all these numbers up, of the names only, so you got Michael or Michelle, Michelin, which is Marshall, Sheba, which is 7652, Jerai 3140, and Jacquin 3275, and Zia. So these two numbers here, for example, that's the age Michelle was when she gave birth to Rhiannon, and that's the difference in age between the two daughters, my youngest and Michelle's youngest. And Heba is the original inventor, if you like, or introducer of the Hebrew language, named after him, right? So it all adds up to 31101. If you've watched the other videos, you'll find that dividing this by 7 gives you 4443, and that's how many times the word God is found in the 3877 verses, which is the distance in nautical miles from where I was born into the Catholic maternity ward in Australia, in Sydney. And then the 4443, which is how many times the word God is found in the 3877 verses. That's the distance between the two houses I built where my children were conceived and grew up for the first part of their lives in Canada, 444.3 kilometres apart. Okay, so it's basically saying the same thing. And this is what's been in around the internet for a long, long time. I did this many years ago. And it gives you that there. So anyone who has seen that will be familiar with it. As I said, Michelle Nye is the reincarnate of Mary Magdalene, absolutely 100% no problem. I had to come from Canada and was arrested. I was not allowed by law to leave my parents' home, which was 7 Trevane Street, Padstow in Sydney, but they didn't like me very much. So my brother invited me down to stay with him on a farm in Melbourne, so I went down there. And Mary Magdalene I met at Rembrandt's, which I put up in the last video or so. And I was turned off women altogether. I wouldn't even eat fish on Fridays. So these are the locations in Canada where my daughters were conceived, Port Alberni and Cornell, 444.3 apart. And if you look closely, zoom in on that, you can get the longitude and latitude. You can measure it yourself, but don't do it with Google Earth. It's bullshit. You've got to use Magellan software. And there she is there, and that's all this extension. I put it out the back, and we were going out that night to the Titanic. It was a restaurant celebrating the death of all the 100 people on the Titanic. Unbelievable. Now, she was reborn on March 19th, 1947. She is 1162.6 days younger than I. The antechamber, as I said, is the same number. My eldest daughter, Tracy, is, as I said, is older than her youngest daughter by 11.626 years, and older than Rhiannon. The antechamber again is that number. However, I was also the same number when I married Eileen in weeks. I wasn't real happy about it. It's a Hosea prophecy. Go marry a harlot. I did. What's this here? Get out of the way. Now, if we measure the two locations in Canada, it goes on. What that convince you I am God? Okay, probably not. No, that you're intelligent. Wouldn't even be waiting this long. You'd be on a plane getting over here. About the distance from where I was born, St. Margaret's Maternity Catholic Hospital, 3877. That's how many times the word God is found. Then you've got the 3875. This is the Comforter from the crib I was in for 942 days, etc. Now, the distance where I grew up, or rather, where I was born, to Eileen, that's that one there. The distance, as you see, is 118.22 kilometres, and that is, of course, SARMS, which is predicting the rejection of myself when I get here. She is 429, I think she died today, the 16th of September. All the stars say she's died today.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, sorry. And 429, the difference between her age and my age is the word God. So there it is up close. Now, when I was up there to see my daughter, after I'd come back from Canada, who didn't want to see me anyhow, I walked around with a GPS, the centre of these roads all around here, and then the GPS was able to calculate the area, and that is 31101 metres. This can all be done, no problemo. And here it is. The stone the builders refused has become the headstone of the corner. So not good enough. And as I said, when we take this into consideration, how about my home to my first wife, then down to Michelle Mary Magdalene, which is 150 Nell Street, Greensboro. The coordinates will be here in a moment. Victoria, Australia, and find it is 777. It's actually 777.7 kilometres. So is that good enough? Well, let's have a look at it in a minute. No. How about back to my family home, which is 1471 kilometres. This is only found once, the 1471 number, and it is talking about myself being in the womb of my mother Mary. To be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. We're talking about Joseph. Child means pregnant, great with child, swelling inside. So all these, we'll get down to it coming up. Well, I'll show you now. There's the two distances there. But let's go back to the other slide. So I've drawn a few drawings up, but I wanted to point out that the actual, this number here means Messiah and the anointed Christ. So there it is there. Let's go and look at it. Now here I've joined up, the pink line is the three sides. So we've got the number 1471, which is pregnant, great with child. Then we've got the 3875 to the South Pole, which is in nautical miles, as a comforter. This one here is Michelle to the South Pole. That's where I live with her in Nell Street. By the way, if you walk around the block where Nell Street is, which I've done with a GPS again, the interior of it, the distance around it is 888 metres. Hello. Okay, so there's the numbers. Now, Christos meaning anointed, and that's where you get that number there from me going to marry the harlot of Lithgow. I say that in being moderate too. She was worse than that. It's the greatest bastard of a thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so we've got Luke 2:5, to be taxed with Mary 3137, and goes on, espoused wife. This is not quite right. So this is where they put that in. Espouse means you're going to marry, right? But she was already great with child. So this is what they do. They put that word in there. Now remember, the espoused word, if you've been watching the series, is the 2861 number, and the distance of the displacement factor reduces the size of the Great Pyramid down from 365.2424, and you can work it out yourself. Subtract 286.1. Here is some computer readouts. We've got January 11th, 1944 to May the 4th in 1968 when I was in Canada. My daughter was born. The sunlight to sunset was 888 minutes and I was 880 days old. This one here is the age I was. It's 1162 and 4 days, which is 0.6 of a week. And that's interesting to look that number up as well. This means to suffer torture and be in agony, which it was. You got no idea. I was married to for 19.7 years. That's my name in Greek, in English. We go up to this one here. This is the age difference, as close as I can get it with this thing, but when you work out the hours, it's actually 1162.6 days. This one here is the difference in age between the eldest daughter and the youngest, and that is that there, calculated out, 11.626. But if you multiply that number there, 606 by 4, It is 2424, which is Jesus in Greek. This one is showing up close what that number is, because it still gives you horrors thinking about it. And all the numbers are going. I could mention other wives I've had and how those numbers fall into it, but it doesn't really matter. Now, 1162.6 weeks is 22.28 years, and the height of the highest mountain in Australia is 2228 metres, or 7309 feet. Now, I've got a lot of work done on this as well, several miracles in there regarding the spans of distances around the Earth to Mount Ararat and all that kind of thing. Here we have the actual, it's very, very hard to see that, but I'll read it to you. It's January 11th, 1944 to April 23rd, 1966, January 11th, 1944 to 19th of March, that's Michelle, Mary Magdalene. Then we got, what then there, what's that? May the 4th, that's another 888 number. Yeah. And then we got my brother, who is also 8.88 years older than I.
The third one is May the 4th, 68 to December, another 11.626
okay,
years.
Yeah. So there's another view of it. These are drawn up by people. This is Adam Rutherford, who was very, very accurate with his drawings. So this is what the pyramid looks like. The descending chamber, that passage there is about there somewhere, and it is westward 286.1. Now you've got a choice here. Right? You can either have this as king, or that. I know who I'm voting for.
I know who I'm voting for.
Give us a kiss. All right. Hasta la vista, baby.
See you later, alligator.
How do we switch this thing on? There we go.
Jonathan Williams recorded in his book Legions of Satan, written in 1781, that General Cornwallis revealed to General Washington that a holy war will now begin on America. And when it is ended, America will supposedly be the citadel of freedom, but her millions will unknowingly be the loyal subjects of the crown. Cornwallis went on to explain what would seem to be a self-contradiction, and he said this, quote, "Your churches will be used to teach the Jews' religion, and in less than 200 years, the whole nation will be working for divine world government. That government that they believe to be divine will be the British Empire. All religions will be permeated with Judaism without even being noticed by the masses, and they will all be under the invisible, all-seeing eye of the grand architect of Freemasonry." And indeed, George Washington himself, ladies and gentlemen, was a Freemason, and he gave back through false religion what he had won with his army. This divine world government that Cornwallis spoke of was the religion of the New World Order. Now, the Jewish religion that Cornwallis was talking about is not the religion that most Jews in this world practice, but a new secular humanistic view that came out of the Lodge of the Mysteries, promoted under international Zionism and the concept of British Israelism. It is the tenet that the Anglo-Aryan race are the true Israelites, and because of that, their royal family, being descended from the house of David in a direct line and a relationship to Jesus Christ himself, have the divine right to rule. One of the myths that are propounded, and you will see more and more of it, is that Jesus did not die on the cross, but entered into a sexual relationship which may have included marriage with Mary of Magdalene, and founded the Merovingian bloodline of kings which began the European dynasties, and this is passed on in secret from father to son and mother to daughter, even unto this day.
Prince William has been inducted into an ancient order of British Knights in a ceremony at Windsor Castle. He's now a Knight of the Garter, all part of his steady elevation in rank as second in line to the throne.
This was a royal coming of age for the young man who will one day be king. Prince William is walking slightly ahead of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. They are bringing up the rear of that procession there. Prince William emerging for the very first time in his Garter robes, having been invested at midday today as the 1000th Knight of the Garter. It's a bizarre sight, really, isn't it?
But also, she was about to go into campaigning on behalf of Palestinians. Now, you can imagine someone of Princess Diana's profile doing that. They would not have tolerated it. They could not have dealt with that. So I think that's why she was taken out.
By serving some higher purpose than ourselves. A shining purpose. The illumination of 1,000 points of light.
I mean, this is what men have dreamed about for the ages, bringing the world together as one, united and as one in peace, so that we can have prosperity and happiness and joy. And that is precisely what this hidden covenant is all about. It's about that message. And we're all going to become Israel. We all become spiritual Jews, the whole world. And yet we see all of this hatred against the Jews today. But we're all going to become spiritual Jews, everybody that's obedient to God. Wonder what is behind that anti-Jew hostility.
Whatever's going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
This will be a different kind of conflict against a different kind of enemy.
And in Copenhagen, Denmark is Nick Pope. For 21 years, Nick was a government official for the British Ministry of Defence. From 91 to 94, he ran the British government's UFO project at the Ministry of Defence, where he researched and investigated the UFO phenomenon for the British government.
Do you believe there is extraterrestrial life?
Okay, well, we're going over the Drake equation, a simple formula designed to estimate the number of intelligent civilizations in the universe that are trying to get in touch,
Christians across the United States, but you don't really expect them to believe the witches are that organized. No, they've just got senators, congressmen, and top witches down there all in one convention. They're not organized. Not at all.
Are you afraid of dying?
Not at all.
Sorry, that's really not an area where I can get into a sort of public discussion on, you know, the whole nuclear issue is just so sensitive. That's not something I can discuss publicly.
Or is it both?
Supremacy. This was the fiery birth of the atomic bomb. Culmination of centuries of step-by-step advance in the scientific quest. Achievement of intense international effort by the Democratic Allies. Product of unremitting research and toil since 1939. This instant of fury and flame and of violence beyond conception sounded the end of an age and heralded a new era in the destiny of mankind. A new relationship of man to his universe.